What is up, everyone? Aoki here, and I'm not going to waste any of your time today, so let's get right into it. Today, Riot released a bombshell of an update, kind of a laying out the roadmap of what preseason for Season 8 is going to look like. For those who haven't been paying attention to their sort of piecemeal updates they've been putting out, what's going to happen is the runes and mastery systems are being combined into one, and then it's going to be made free, so you no longer have to waste IP on that, which I personally think is great. I think that's one of the dumbest design decisions, and I can't believe it's lasted this long. So they're finally getting rid of that, which is fantastic. And one by one, they've been revealing these runes and the more powerful runes, which are called keystones, which you should be used to. So what I've done is I've read a little bit of this stuff, and I wanted to share with you what your Leona builds for preseason and into Season 8 should be looking like. So let's take a gander before we dive into it. Right off the bat, we have these 5 major trees or families of runes. We have Precision with the tagline, Become a Legend. Domination, where you apparently hunt and eliminate prey. You have Sorcery, where you unleash destruction. And I don't know, man, I'm sorry, but I feel like Riot hired a 14-year-old that's like super into Bionicles to write these taglines. Yeah, anyways, we have Resolve next with the tagline, Live Forever. And this is the most important one. We're going to come back to that one. But lastly, we have Inspiration with the tagline, Outwit Mere Mortals. And I'm pretty sure fedoras are mandatory wearing if you use that tree. So let's get into it. The Resolve tree, which is very obviously meant to cater to champions like Leona. And in fact, they even show Leona using one of the runes here in this little preview. They call her Dive Bomber Leona, which basically just, it looks a lot like normal Leona. It actually surprised me how much attention they gave to Leona in this little preview, because Leona is like historically a very ignored champion. Like they said a long time ago they were going to do a champion update for her, and that never happened. Here very recently we've gotten like the most half-hearted buff to her I've ever seen. It's just historically she's been very much ignored by Riot. So I was very surprised to see her on like 3 different parts of this update page. But getting into it. So the thing you want to see here in this little Dive Bomb Leona segment is you want to recognize the little green shock that just went off right there. That's actually one of the new Resolve keystones, which is called Aftershock. And if you look here, I'll show you all of them. Here is what your new rune page is going to look like. So first off, you choose a primary. I've already locked in Resolve since this is definitely, I mean definitely, the one you're going to use with Leona. So you're choosing between the first 3 of these. Right off the bat, we have Grasp of the Undying, which should be very, very familiar to you, as it's basically pulled directly from the current Grasp of the Undying. The only difference is that now Grasp of the Undying permanently increases your health. So you can think of it a little bit like stacking, where Nasa stacks his Q and he gets more damage. The longer you're in combat with someone, you permanently, every 4 seconds, you get like a stack of health that permanently increases your health. So if you're looking to go for late game Leona, this is for you. I don't really recommend that because a lot of Leona's strengths lie in her laning and her mid game. So let's move on to the next one. And this one is simple. You right click an ally and you both get a shield. Now this concept is interesting to me because it can help deter you from getting poked out of lane. For instance, if you're against a Janna and a Caitlyn and you know you're never going to really have an opportunity to jump on them during laning phase, just bring Guardian. The third option is going to be called Aftershock. That's the one we saw in the Dive Bomb Leona segment. And it's just like, it's almost like proccing Thunderlords. If you immobilize someone, which means your E or your Q, because your E does temporarily immobilize them for like half a second or something, you're going to proc this Aftershock, which after a second or 2, poof, it's kind of like your W popping. So Aftershock is for when you think you can jump on your lane opponents. For instance, if you're against a Jhin or a Brand and they don't have a ton of disengage to keep you from jumping down their throats, this little bit of extra damage is going to be very, very nice. It's crazy easy to proc. You just need to immobilize the champion with your E or your Q. Moving on to the next row of runes, you've got Perseverance, which increases your tenacity and slow resist after you cast a summoner spell. And I thought this one was kind of weird until I started applying it to situations in my head. To instances for Leona, for instance, like if you have to flash engage, you have to flash Q someone or flash E. That'll just give you a little more resistances and survivability. So most likely Perseverance is going to be your go-to. If you aren't thinking any particular instances, just bring Perseverance because it's never going to hurt you. You're always going to get usage out of it because it procs every single time you use a summoner spell and you use them many times throughout the game. The next one is a total waste to bring on Leona. I'm not going to spend any time on it. It's clearly designed for top laners, not for supports. It charges up a powerful attack against a tower while near it. That's not your job. Your job is not to take turrets. That's for ADCs, top laners. It's not you. Alright, so we're not going to bring this. The next one is Font of Life, which should also look very familiar because it's extremely similar to the current Stoneborn pack that we have. So I would recommend this one over Perseverance if you have an immobile hypercarry ADCs. They're very popular in the current meta, things like Kog'Maw and Twitch. Now, whether or not that will translate into preseason and season 8, I don't know. But if you do ever have an immobile hypercarry that you want to just give a little bit of HP juice to, I would recommend Font of Life. For most situations though, I'm going to be bringing Perseverance. So this next set of runes I'm not actually that crazy about. I kind of feel like they're very boring, static design decisions, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about them here. This one is Iron Skin, where whenever you heal for 20 health or from a consumable effect, like you pop a potion, you get armor for 3 seconds. Like, whoop-de-doo, who cares? The next one is the exact same thing, except for MR. The third one is called Conditioning, and this is where after 10 minutes you gain 6 armor and 6 magic resist and increase your total armor and magic resist by 5%. So it's a bit of a power spike, and what's interesting is that around the 10-minute mark in typical games, it's a very pivotal point in the game, you know, where dragon fights are occurring. Most people are hitting their level 6 power spike around there, so I can see myself switching to this one as kind of the norm, because that 10-minute mark is very important for champions like Leona that capitalize on huge level 6 power spikes or really thrive when you can catch someone that's trying to do an unsafe dragon or things like that. You know, I can see myself bringing Iron Skin if they lock in all AD champions, which does happen quite often in solo queue, but Conditioning is going to be my go-to. This last tree is pretty interesting. Our choices are Overgrowth, which means that every 10 monsters or minions that die somewhere around you, which means you don't necessarily have to kill them. It's okay if your ADC kills them. It permanently gives you more HP. So another instance of permanently stacking HP. So if you're looking to scale up, this one is for you. The second choice is Revitalize, which this one is just straight up not for Leona. It's just another one. It's kind of like Demolish. It's clearly just not meant for her. It increases your shields and heals, which you don't have any of as Leona. It's not your role. Those are for pussies like Soraka, Janna, Lulu, things like that. It's not for you. Skip this one. And our third choice is Second Wind, which restores health over time based on your missing health. And this one seems really great because way too often do I find myself getting chunked down while trying to defend our turrets. Like maybe the enemy team is sieging us and I take 1 or 2 too much damage, and then I have to make this tough decision of either going back to my fountain to get full health and running back to the tower as fast as I can, and while I'm doing that I risk my team getting dove and killed while I'm not there to protect them, or the other option is to stay next to the tower with like maybe 20% health and I force it and I die because I don't have enough health to compete in the fight. So this one can kind of help negate how abusive poke and siege comps can be against Leona, because that's a very frustrating thing about Leona, is that if you fall behind, you can't just continue to go in. So you kind of hit this like Twilight Zone where you want to go in and be useful, but if you do, you die. And if you just sit there and get poked down, you die anyway. So I could see myself using Second Wind quite often. Okay, so now that we've gone over kind of the runes and in which situations you're going to want to use them, you also get to choose a secondary rune tree, which while not as impactful or important as the first one, Resolve, there's still a ton of options. So just in the first day that this has come out, just now I've been theory crafting since they released, and I wanted to show you guys the 2 pages that I will be running as my standard Leona pages. The first secondary rune tree I'll be using is kind of going to be my standard go-to if I'm a little hesitant or not as confident in my team's composition. I will be running Inspiration. And this is like the support-y secondary tree, and I'll be running the following. Hextech, Flash Traption, which is maybe the dumbest name I've ever heard in my life. And then my third is going to be Cosmic, I think, yeah, there it was, Cosmic Insight, which lets me have plus 5% CDR, plus 5% on my CDR cap, 5% on my summoner spell cooldown, and 5% on my item cooldowns, which means I get to use Locket 5% more often. So that is definitely going to be my standard. If I'm not crazy about our team comp, those are the ones I'm going to be locking in. So here is my other page, and this one is just looking badass the more and more I read into it. So this is for when I just want to beat the shit out of my laning opponent, and I want to really rub their faces in it, snowball my lane, and just terrorize the mid game with a ton of damage. I lock in sorcery, which right off the bat gives plus 70 health, and I lock in the ultimate hat, which gives me cooldown reduction and max cooldown reduction on my ultimate, which is a very important skill on Leona. And this is increased further each time you use your ultimate up to a maximum. What the maximum is, we don't know yet. So we lock in ultimate hat, and as our secondary, we lock in, where did it go here? Oh, Scorch, which is kind of just like extra damage. Your first ability hit every single 20 seconds, it resets. You get to burn someone. So I think this is going to be really good against like squishies like Soraka, or maybe a Lulu that you catch out of position. It's just extra oomph, you know. Puts a little something behind your Qs. So there you have it, guys. My rundown of the new runes update for preseason. I hope that you guys have a stronger grasp on what builds for Leona are going to look like. We have two main pages that I'm going to be running. I cannot wait to get my hands on this stuff. This is actually getting me very, very excited for preseason. But again, this is all new to me, so if you guys think I've messed something up, or you have different suggestions for builds, different runes you've been tinkering with and plugging in and theory crafting, let me know down in the comments. And thank you guys for watching. Peace.